Managing wealth is complex, but making decisions shouldn't be.
We have seen that many decisions that were taken at that point of time didn't pan out really correct.
So, how would Trust Fund's AI platform would practically change their investment decision-making process?
You might find it fascinating that after a point, ChatGPT can really mimic and behave like the way you are behaving.
How does AI-driven risk intelligence helps in preserving multi-generational wealth?
If you use more AI than this, it will start hallucinating and taking over your decisions.
Managing wealth is complex, but making decisions shouldn't be. Welcome everyone to the Family Office Decision series by Transformance Forums, and I'm your host for the day, Pranjal Chopra. We are inside India's most thoughtful capital room, the conversation that shaped generational wealth. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Sanath, who is the founder and the partner of Trust One Advisor. Welcome, Mr. Sanath.
Hi.
Let's get started with our sixth episode, which speaks about AI-driven risk and the future of family office decision making. So, before we start, Mr. Sanath, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. You have, of course, mentioned my name. So, I'm a chartered accountant by degree, completed it about 12 years back. Have seen different parts of my experience. Had been into mergers and acquisitions and investment banking for the first 3 years of roughly 4 years of my career. With the larger firms, Big Fours, BMR. I had been mentored by one of the veterans in the industry, Bobby Parikh, and eventually I moved into building my own company, and we sold it to a pharma giant. So I have seen building my own firm and selling it to again a family office. So we were a company which was bought by a family office in around 2020. And further, then I moved into IBM, and I was part of their tech, wherein we were building tech from mergers and acquisitions and transactions point of view. So that's again a very different world that I have seen. And prior we started Trust One Advisors, I was building a venture firm. I was building a AI venture firm, which was also run by the family office, one of the largest family offices in Thailand. So that's where I come from, a very varied background, where I have seen different kinds of investment thought processes, which comes very centric to the structure thought process versus a very agile thought process, the way we did it when we did it at the time when we were building an AI venture. So that's the overall background. And today I'm building a firm called Trust One Advisors. Our foundational thought process was, how can we leverage the intelligence that can be built, intelligence that can be structured by way of an AI platform, and how can we bring in the insights from market leaders who are our partners also, thereby to create a combined force of knowledge for our clients and partners. So that's my background, and that's the firm's background.
Great to hear that, Mr. Sanath. Without any further ado, let's get started with our very first question, which goes by Trust Fund's tagline is where insight meets intelligence, which I think is very powerful. But I would like to understand, was there any specific moment which made you realize that AI had to be at the core of your advisory platform and not just an add-on?
Um, I think the overall journey, which I mentioned as my overall last 10 years that I have worked, uh, I have seen multiple large transactions, family office advisories, structures that we have built for family offices. Uh, we have dealt with huge amounts of data. And at the same point of time, we have dealt with multiple advisors who are interacting. Even today, when we are doing transactions, there are multiple advisors that are interacting over a certain set of data. And third that we have seen is specific behavioral biases which exist as a part, especially when it comes to family offices, because there is a certain thought process in which a family office has grown over the years, right? So if it is a family office who has grown a generational wealth, let's say in real estate for that matter, right? So there is a certain thought process in how they look at IRRs, they look at market returns, they look at the asset covers, they look at whether it is an equity investment or a debt investment that favors better. So when we look at now the so unstructured, amassed amount of data, with every biases that can come up, we have seen that many decisions that were taken at that point of time didn't pan out really correct. We have seen the falls when there has been a situation where we had invested in a consumer technology company, consumer electronics technology company, and it took a very bad shot and it fell down. The reason is because it was a behavioral run. Everybody was investing into consumer electronic technology 3 years, 2 years back, and we also got into the bandwagon and advised the same thing to our family office structures. So long story short, we then understood that I understood that can we have a platform that can do three things together, right? One, uh, create a uniformity in the way the data can be managed. Second, the way the same uniformity can actually bring all the insights from different advisors into one single place. And the interplay of it can be managed, because if there is a legal guy versus a tax guy versus a financial guy speaking in the same room, for a investor, it can have a contradictory thought process. And to unify it, this platform becomes a phenomenal value proposition. Now, the third idea here was that governance is one of the most important aspects when it comes to a family office investor. Because if I'm a fund, if I am a very large fund, I can manage the governance, I can enforce the governance. If I'm a bank, of course I can. If I'm a private equity, I can. But a family office essentially needs to, doesn't have that kind of an apparatus always to establish a governance and establish the diligence. And we wanted to see to it that how that can be driven by way of a technology. And that's the reason we said that let's bring a platform which is driven by AI, and then bring our advisors or our set of consultants to work with that platform to deliver the value for our clients. So it's still a very insight practice driven approach, but the intelligence increases the way we can actually deliver value and foresee the amount of risks that can be possible. So that's the reason the insight meets intelligence.
That's fascinating to hear. And with that, let's move to our second one. So, for someone at the summit who manages 500 crore family portfolio, so how would Trust Fund's AI platform would practically change their investment decision making process?
Right. Let's start with how we can capture the investment thesis, right? So there is a, let's take an example. There is a family office who has erstwhile built a business, right? Let's say, for example, in steel. Steel is a very cyclical business. They have understood how the steel and the steel ecosystem works. So they have enough intelligence from a steel cyclical business standpoint. Now that intelligence eventually has turned into a family office which is further investing into sectors that are industrial and steel connected. Let's say this is the thesis, right? Now, if there is a family office investor who wants to take up decisions, it would be purely insight driven, and after the insight driven, the risk analysis and the diligence might be done by some larger firms, right? So what we are saying is, when we step in, we are not saying that we'll do everything digital, and probably that cannot be done as well. What we are saying is, let's get all your intelligence put up into a system that understands you. Like, I think, of course, everybody now uses chat GPTs and the sorts. You might find it fascinating that after a point, chat GPT can really mimic and behave like the way you are behaving. So what we have built as our LLM, or per se say an intelligence model, which is completely built by us in-house, is that I give you an intelligence model wherein you effectively just put in what your thoughts, data, decisions, which you have been running over the years in that platform, and keep it in your laptop. Now, when you have that as the foundation and run different documents across it, it processes like the family office decision maker will process and think. So one, it gives a mass scale for you to process. At the same point of time, it improves the way you think. You might be having certain biases which it will cut off and say that, see, from a risk standpoint and a subject matter standpoint, you might be getting biased out here. So that's where it initially creates that kind of database for you to maintain your intelligence, not just the data but the intelligence. Now, from here comes the role of we as an advisor, wherein our advisory team were the experts in tax, transactions, IB, unlisted markets, maybe subject matters. So we have been subject matters for years in infrastructure, real estate, healthcare, and a bit on technology. So these are our core sectors which we understand quite well. Now, when we understand these sectors, we can use your intelligence that you have stored with our advisory to pick out right set of investment options apart, which can be, of course, traditional, but also the alternative classes. So this is how really for a family office which is working on the 500 crore kind of a number, we can actually help them restructure their intelligence and restructure their risk and the decision making with the combination of our advisory and the platform. So that's basically how the thought process of the new style of advisory we believe will come up with as the time goes as well.
That really highlights the practical value of technology in wealth
Yeah.
management. Let's move to our third question, which goes by the seventh great Indian family office is themed maximizing wealth and preserving legacy. So, in your view, how does AI driven risk intelligence helps in preserving multi generational wealth?
So I'll take up from exactly the point that I mentioned earlier, right? So the multi-generational wealth, when it is generated, it has been built over a particular thought process, which is a take by the promoter's family on a particular industry and the way the business needs to be built. That's a take that a promoter has started. So if I am a promoter in whatever X industry, right, I took a take that my industry, if I am into heavy metals or etc., my industry might grow like this. I need to position my business like this and need to build like this, right? So eventually the generational wealth got built, and now that has been converted into a portion wherein it is saying that the same take which I took from an industry and an execution standpoint, I will also do it with other entrepreneurs and other industry, right? So uh, that is the thought process on growth and maximizing a generational wealth. But uh, it gets eroded essentially when it doesn't evolve with the way the industry evolves, right? And when the generation moves, it passes on to a first generation, to the second, to the third. Each of they have different takes in way the in which the investment needs to happen. Now, I'm not saying that the second generation or the third cannot have their own take. Dhirubhai Ambani can have a great Mukesh Ambani also. But the point also being said is that can that legacy as intelligence being carried forward, right? So that's the exact point that I mentioned earlier. So the AI per se can essentially reserve your intelligence and decision making and help you carry it over while improving and removing the decision biases. It stops here. After this, if you start using AI, in world of AI we call it hallucination. If you use more AI than this, it will start hallucinating and taking over your decisions and remove the innovations. So if you want to really maximize, then preserve what the AI, the way we think the AI can do is preserve the intelligence that has been built, uh, that has been used for building the generational wealth, and use that for taking your decisions as you move ahead when you are investing further. Now, the AI further helps with, most importantly, by cutting down the investment cycles. How it will do it is, see, the AI part of first part is holding the generational thought process. The second part is that how can we cut and the entire deal cycle time in reference to due diligences, risk evaluations, in reference to how the patterns are to be identified, how the market research has to be done. If this can be structured and brought together, which can be combined with the intelligence that was preserved, these two together, along with the set of advisors, can help the family offices to grow their wealth and maximize it. So we have understood that what AI can do from a learning point of view, what AI can do from a structuring point of view. After that, and where the advisor's role comes in. If these metrics works together, it can uh, eventually help be a guiding light for the family office and run a family office without having a fund like setup. You still are a family office. You don't need to operate like a fund with all the apparatus that you need to do, but you still can manage the entire intelligence. You can still manage the analysis. You can still manage the risk when you are investing. So that's the fourth thought process, which gets carried from exactly the second point that I mentioned, right? So yeah, that's very much it.
That's really important perspective, especially in today's fast changing environment. And with that, let's end with our episode number 6, which talks about AI driven risk and the future of family office decision making process.
Thank you so much, and I'll be looking forward to meeting a lot of people and speaking more about our take in the seventh family office summit. Yeah.